Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful people on Patreon. Amazing people like Parallax Puddles, Mike from the Old Switcheroo podcast, Melissa S., Ryan K., Pib Extra, Matt aka Stormageddon, Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Stephen P., Doug from the Nostalgia Marcanon podcast, Gilmer, and Mr. Biscuits have all been wonderful enough to support the show over there. So if you would also like to get your name read at the beginning of an episode, along with a bunch of other goodies, go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and check out everything it has to offer. On this episode of Still Loading, we're going back to basics. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today's episode, it is the first episode of Mario Month 2026. We are kicking it off strong, y'all. We are talking about the original Super Mario Brothers. Now, Josh, you might be asking, Josh, why are you doing this? Didn't you cover this 8 years ago? You sound like kind of like a Thurston Howell III type of person asking me this question, I guess. Yes, Lovey, why are you covering? I'm losing the thread already. I am tired. We're covering the original Super Mario Brothers today. And yes, I have covered it before. And I'll get into why I'm covering it again in just a moment. But before I do that, just so they don't have to stay quiet the whole time while I'm rambling on about stuff, joining me, two returning guests, two wonderful people that I've had on the show before. We're going to start off with the longest returning guest, someone who hasn't been on, I think, since Link to the Past. We have Ashton Ruby from the Retro Hangover podcast. Ashton, how are you doing today?
Hello, Josh. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. Pleasure having you back on. I think that's right? You haven't been on the show since Link to the Past?
We did.
Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yes, you were on for Wolfenstein. Then I don't know if maybe I did this in the wrong order. I don't remember the last time my other guest here was on. But the other guest joining us, Try from My Life in Gaming. Try, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Excited to talk about my first ever video game experience today.
I had to get you back on for Mario Month, man. I feel like there are certain individuals that are staples of different series, and I feel like you at this point are a staple of Mario Month. So I will be trying to get you on other Mario Month episodes as whatever I decide the theme is next year, which should be fun. But that actually leads me into like the reason why we're covering the games we're covering. So for those who aren't on social media, I made an announcement like back in January. This is coming out of March. We're actually recording this in January. I work ahead, listeners. I made an announcement talking about to show what games I'll be covering in Mario Month this year. And this year we are covering Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 2, the USA version, the North American release, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. Only one of those 5 I have not covered on the show before, and it's Yoshi's Island. I've covered the other 4. I've covered Mario Bros. 1 through 3 and World. But the reason I'm doing this again, well, one, I picked different themes for each Mario Month. Even going back to I think one of the first times you were on Mario Month, Try, I can't remember exactly. You were on, it was back in 2023. I did New Super Mario Bros. For the DS, which you were the guest for, Try. Then we did Super Mario Galaxy, New Super Mario Bros. New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and Galaxy 2. And then in 2024, it was all Mario Kart games. I did Mario Kart 64 up through the Wii. Last year, 2025, was all Mario RPGs, which Try, you were a guest for Thousand Year Door on. We covered Super Mario RPG all the way up through Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. So each year I try to pick a different theme. I'm going to be doing, Mario sports games. There's going to be, Mario tennis and golf and all this other stuff. And I'll cross those bridges when we get to it. But the reason I'm doing these again, I originally covered these, I want to say 8 years ago, I think in like 2018. And the reason I'm redoing it is because 2018 was a while ago, man. I've learned so much in podcasting since then. I'm a significantly different podcaster than I was back in 2018. I would say the show didn't start becoming what you all know it as now until like 2020. So I thought this would be a great time to take a look at these games again, talk about them in detail that I'm more used to and more accustomed to now. And I thought it would be fun to just get a chance to actually sit down and play these again. And with that said, actually, here's something that's kind of cool on my own end. Other than Mario 3 and World and Yoshi's Island, I had never beaten the first 2 Super Mario Bros. I had never beaten 1 or 2. I've played them before, but I've never beaten them, and I finally rectified that. With that said, I did beat them with save states, especially Super Mario Bros. 2. I'm going to talk a lot about that in the next episode. Just buckle up your sit downs for that one, listeners. I got some feelings on it. But we're here to talk about Super Mario Brothers, of course. You know, the game that kind of, it didn't kick off Mario as a character, but it kicked off the Super Mario franchise as we know it now, as a side-scrolling platformer. And I guess to, jump right into it, we should talk about our own personal experiences with it. So I'm going to start off real quick with you, Ashton, your personal experiences with the original Mario game, and then we'll go from there. So Ashton, personal experiences, what do you got?
Sure. And a common story is a very early gaming experience, probably the earliest. It had to be either Super Mario Brothers or Legend of Zelda. One of those two was the very first video game I ever played. And we owned the Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt combo cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I remember playing the most. And so my older siblings, they were the ones that owned the Nintendo because it came out the same year I was born. So I was a little bit, too young at first, but from a very early age, before, being able to read, I remember playing Mario Brothers and playing that first stage. So yeah, an early core memory is playing Mario Brothers and using the warp level skip, all that we'll get into probably more. But yeah, if not the first, it's first 2 or 3 games I ever played in my life was Super Mario Brothers.
I think that's a very similar story to a lot of gamers for good reason, obviously. Try throwing it over to you, though, your personal experiences with Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, Ashton mentioned, he has, siblings and, they had, these things. And I'm an only child. So I was perhaps less aware of, just some of the things out there that didn't pass my own peripheral vision that didn't come my way. So it's not my first memory, but like if you like balance like the earliness of the memory to the vividness of the memory, like this is like my first like really clear, really vivid memory, quite possibly. I mean, I was 4 or 5 years old, and I was going to visit my aunt and uncle and cousin, and my cousin, also an only child. And she asked me if when we got there, I wanted to play Super Mario Brothers. And, my idea of play at that time is, action figures, pretending to do things in the yard, like whatever play is. And I didn't know what she meant by that. I think I may have had this image in my head of what the characters were, because I think I had maybe either seen like a ad for the TV show, the cartoon show, the Super Show, but I did not know what a video game was. So I mean, I just, I didn't know what this game was that we were going to be playing, but I just said, yeah, sure. And we get there and like I did not know that like things where I did not know this thing where you could move a character and control what was on TV screen existed.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I just had no idea. And this is just absolutely blowing my mind. I'm just immediately like, I have to have this for Christmas. So yeah, we played Mario 1, we played Duck Hunt, we played Hogan's Alley. Those are the three I remember from that first kind of exposure to the NES, or just, Nintendo, as we called it back then. So yeah, I mean, it was just a hugely formative experience, and maybe we'll have varying opinions in the panel here, because I hear a lot of people be like, oh, Mario 1, it hasn't really aged as well as these other games, and I'm like, this game feels as fresh to me today, like the controls, just the mechanics, like they're ageless to me. Like they don't feel like, I don't go back to this game and feel like, oh, like that's I don't know, it's not as good as no, it still feels perfect to me. So, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Absolutely. We got a lot to talk about with it. For myself though, my own personal experiences, this kind of similar to you, this was a game that kind of became synonymous to me, not necessarily this game's in particular, I should say, but Mario in general became synonymous with video games to me, because it was, I don't know if it was the first game I ever saw. I can't remember that, but what I do remember is a very similar reaction to you, where the first time I saw it, I was just in shock. I'm like, this is a cartoon I can control. I've told that story I've told the story a bunch on the podcast, so I apologize to those who have heard it already, but for maybe any of you new listeners who have not heard it, I went over to a church friend's house. They had the NES, and I don't know if it was this game or Mario 3 that I saw first. I feel like it was Mario 3, but I can't remember. So this story is kind of a smaller version of the story is going to appear on the Mario 3 episode, just a heads up. But I remember seeing it and just being in shock. I'm like, this is like the cartoons that I love watching, but I can move them around. What is this? What is this? What is this witchcraft I'm seeing? I was just so mesmerized by it, and ever since I saw that, video games have just been something I've loved. And I've had ebbs and flows in my love for video games, but like I can really attribute my love of gaming back to Mario, and not just because Mario is a good game, though I do think my love of gaming would probably not be as strong if it wasn't for the fact that Mario is as good as it is. But yeah, I remember vividly like experiencing it and just being blown away. I could not believe I could control the things appearing on my TV. It was
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that feeling. And I was thinking about this as you were talking, I'm like, my daughter's really into video games. At the time we're recording this, I just released an episode of an interview with a 4-year-old on my Patreon, where she's not on mic or anything like that, but I interviewed her. I asked her, like, what's your favorite game? What do you like about video games? Her favorite game right now, by the way, is Astrobot. So there's a little teaser if anyone wants to join the Patreon to hear the rest of her answers. A 4-year-old answers. Excuse me, a 4 years old answer.
Pick. That's a good pick. I'm impressed.
And she's really good at it too, man. It's really fun. It's fun to watch her play. But so yeah, she. I was thinking about this because she's never known a world where video games wasn't a thing. And I think one of the reasons video games were so huge to me is because I didn't know they existed until I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, maybe 5.
Yeah,
and so,
I mean, they existed since we were alive, but like they weren't so pervasive.
Yes,
to the point where like it just seems I don't know if anyone else is growing up with a moment like that. Like surely not. Like that would be really hard to engineer.
And like, I also don't think there's even a moment now, like maybe because a lot of cartoons are now 3D animated, you can kind of have
Mm,
that. But like, I do think there is that element too of just like, this is something I've seen already, but now I can control it. Like, I specifically like Mario 3 because it has, there's an outline to Mario. It's not like Mario in this game in SMB1, he is kind of like flat textures almost, like, and it doesn't look bad. I'm not
right.
saying that to denigrate it. It's just, Mario 3, it's a step up in graphics, and that's no shade at this Mario game. It's just stating a fact. um and I do think that, like, because that has like a more cartoony look than this game, I think it definitely left a bigger impression on me because it felt like, oh yeah, these are the games these are the cartoons that I love watching. This is like, Rugrats, but I'm controlling it type of thing. Even though I, now as an adult, I'm like, wow, they look, nothing like the cartoons I was watching. But to
Yeah.
like a 7-year old or however old I was, I don't remember. It might as well have been the same.
It was still just like moving something on a screen. Like it's so hard to convey to people like how that was just mind blowing that was even possible.
And it's just funny because it's like, like you were saying, Try, video games have existed for our entire lifetimes. Like, it's not like I was born before video games existed. It was just that I
Yeah.
did not experience them. If I was 5, that would have been like 94 or 95. The Super Nintendo and PlayStation were out, right? Like, it's not like I grew up in a
Right.
world where video games were just not there. It's just I never experienced them. And so I almost wonder sometimes, would, like, my daughter likes video games. I think that she in general is going to continue to like them. But I wonder if she would, if I kind of robbed her of a similar experience that I had, of just this wonder of like being able to control the cartoons I love, and
Mm.
but because now she just knows, oh, it's just a video game, and she still likes them. So she's going to have her own experiences. I should not try to put my experiences on her. But it was just, I don't know, just thinking about it. Um, anyway, yeah, let's get into some fun facts about the game real quick before we dive into the gameplay. Super Mario Brothers originally came out, according to Wikipedia, on September 13th, 1985 in Japan. The North American release date is a lot more complicated. In fact, at the time of this recording, the Video Game History Foundation released a phenomenal documentary, not about Mario Bros. Specifically, but about the NES release in North America. Because for years, it's not really been, I guess, as a real quick synopsis of what I mean by this, when the NES came out in North America in 1985, it was only released in the New York metro area, in that kind of
Right.
market. And because of that, because it was so hard to get the system in stores and so hard to, because they were trying to bring the home video game consoles back from the death knell they were given a couple years ago in North America.
Don't call it a video game system, it's an entertainment
Yeah,
system.
and we'll make it, we won't have it be a top loader like you're used to. It's going to be front loading, which apparently is not because of a VCR. I know that's been a thing running around for a while. Like, they made it front loader to mimic a VCR. Apparently that's not the case. But I will include a link to the Video Game History Foundation's documentary because it's fascinating. Like, they interviewed the people who designed like the actual like visual look of the NES that we got, why they made the choices they made, like stuff like that. It's really interesting. And the reason I bring that up, though, we're talking about Super Mario Brothers. Why are you talking, Josh, about the release of the NES? They are synonymous with each other. Super Mario Brothers came out on the exact same time, the exact same day as the NES did in North America. But that release date has been kind of obfuscated because it's not like there was a hard release date. There was no street date given on them like we're used to now. So it's kind of like October-ish 1985 is when it came out in North America. I don't know. I think they kind of, in the documentary, I should have looked it up again. They give a specific date. I don't remember it anymore. But once again, watch the documentary. It's only an hour long and it's fascinating. Well worth your time. So yes, came out in October-ish 1985, was of course developed and published by Nintendo. The director was the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto, the composer, the legendary Koji Kondo. Just crazy amounts of talent. And also Takashi Tezuka was one of the designers for this game. He would go on to direct Super Mario World, and he's obviously still working at Nintendo now. I don't know what his most recent credit is. According to Wikipedia, his most recent credit is senior supervisor for Brothership, Mario and Luigi Brothership, and Princess Peach Showtime. Excuse me. And he's, of course, working on the movies and stuff like that. Yeah, so some interesting stuff. I did some digging on this, y'all, on just some fun facts that I could look up. There's a great Iwata asks, for those who don't remember, back when Satoru Iwata was president before he passed away, he would do interviews with developers to kind of build hype for upcoming games, and they are a treasure trove of Nintendo history that you might not expect. Like, the information I got here was on New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but because it was a New Super Mario Bros. Wii, he was like, well, we should go back to the beginning, and they ask about how Mario became Mario. So the first half of the interview is about Mario, the original Mario, like Donkey Kong, Mario, stuff like that. Which is really, really cool. Some of the things we already know: Mario got to start as Jumpman in Donkey Kong, which was originally going to be a Popeye game. He was also going to be called Mr. Video at one point in time. Mario wears a hat because it was it was more challenging to animate hair and would take up more valuable pixel real estate. So they went with a hat and suspenders because the hat would make it so they wouldn't have to animate hair, and the suspenders would make it easier to see his hands animate in front of it when they move past. The Koopas from the Mario Bros game, not Super Mario Bros, but the Mario Bros game, which obviously then became a staple of the series. You see them here in Super Mario Brothers. The turtle design was a response to when they were making Mario Bros. And you hit an enemy from underneath, they had to come up with an enemy of what's an enemy that would be incapacitated temporarily and then come back? And they thought about a turtle, going into their shell and coming back out. And that's kind of how the Koopas came to be. And fun fact about Koopas specific to Super Mario Brothers is that they were going to be the main enemy that you face in Mario before the Goomba kind of became the face of your basic stock enemy. But during playtesting, a lot of players found that the Koopas were too hard to take out. It's because you would hit them, you hit the shell would bounce back and forth, which I think was a smart choice by Nintendo. Give you the player an enemy that you can just bop a one-hit kill as your basic attack, as your basic enemy, and then have enemies that have more advanced mechanics like the shell mechanics and stuff like that. Also, fun fact about the Goomba, and speaking of the Goomba, they have a 2-frame animation cycle because the Goomba was a late addition to the game. And for those who don't know, the Mario Bros. Game is the limit of what the NES could technically do, prior to them adding memory mapper chips into the individual cartridges. So what you see on the original Super Mario Brothers, if no one added any memory mapper chips, basically expanded capabilities to any cartridges, we would have never gotten anything more advanced than Super Mario Brothers on the NES, which is kind of wild to think about because that was in 1985, and the games that were coming out in the mid 90s are insane.
Yeah. And they were kind of if I recall correctly, think of it almost as kind of a swan song for the cartridge format, because in Japan, at least, they were really envisioning that the disc system format was going to take over.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it was a failure necessarily or anything. There's a lot of games for the disc system, a lot of games that we have as cartridges here that Japan only has as discs over there, or even some games didn't even get a full retail release. They were only distributed as rewritable games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of seen as the future there, but I don't know if it was because disc system didn't come out here and they realized they would have to continue investing in cartridge technology or what. But obviously Super Mario Brothers was not, it was the end of unassisted NES hardware, Famicom hardware, but it was not the end of cartridges for the NES. It was only the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so fascinating. Sorry, were you going to say something, Ashton?
Oh no, just agree.
Okay. Something else I thought was surprising from the Iwata Ask interview about SMB was the sky. What's interesting, apparently the blue sky was an innovation for the time. Like most platformers only had, or most games only had black backgrounds.
Right.
An excerpt from the Iwata Ask interview. This is Iwata's talking. Donkey Kong involved jumping, as did Mario Bros. So you felt Nintendo were the real originators of this kind of game. Miyamoto, I did. I went as far as thinking that jumping is an original idea and that it should be patented. Anyway, I thought, right, I'm not going to let those other games top us. And laughs, ha ha ha. We had done tests where a large character jumped around with the blue sky in the background. Then Iwata replies, video games at that time usually had black background. And this is the last part of this quote. Miyamoto replies, video game designers back then wanted to keep the black background as it was less tiring for the player's eyes to see. But I had felt like the time had come when people were tiring of that, and I thought it might be good to have a primary color background that varies. So we utilized the technical capabilities of the Famicom to the full and decided to make Super Mario Bros. Based on the concept of having a large character that would negotiate land, sea, and air. And in speaking of sea, we'll get to it. Actually, no, I'm going to save this fun fact for when we talk about the gameplay, because there's something I did not put together when it comes to the gameplay, which I thought was really interesting. The other fun facts I can talk about when we get to the actual gameplay. But is there anything else you guys want to chime in on some of the history of Mario?
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily a place to put it, but it was just kind of dawning on me replaying it. Kind of the marvel that this game really is, like that Troy kind of mentioned with the timeless controls, and how, I don't know, like even when I was a kid playing this game, how much I took it for granted, how technically, like, to develop this game, how much of a marvel that really was. And
just the math that is
yeah,
required for that, like the way that Mario, ramps up his speed and ramps down
totally.
his speed, and you turn on it, the way you turn around and skid,
Mhm.
like it was years before other games were catching up with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, you can even see it. That's a good point, Ashton. Just the feel of the controls, which we can then use to transition. Professional podcaster here, man. Thank you. But I think you make a really good point where it's like nothing felt like this game at the time, and it took. I think like you both said, it took years for them to catch up to like have a similar feel to what Mario was doing, and I think that really goes back to like Miyamoto has talked about this in other interviews, not specifically for Super Mario Brothers, but just for Mario in general, that the first thing they always do in a Mario game, and I don't know if to be clear, I do not know if they did this with Super Mario Bros., but I wouldn't be surprised based off of their ethos for how they design Mario games, how they have designed Mario games historically, is they focus on the move set first. They make sure the control feels good and fun to do. It feels fun and responsive. And they've done that for every Mario game. There's a reason why Mario 64 still feels pretty damn good, even when every other N64 game, I shouldn't say every other, a lot of other N64 games feel very dated. There's a reason why Mario Sunshine controls really well, even though it's a janky ass game. Mario Galaxy, New Super Mario Bros., like all this stuff, it feels good to play still. And I think that the physics that they chose for it, even though you touched on it in your intro, Try, about like you were saying that people say this game is dated, and while I don't 100% agree with that, I do notice a little bit in the controls, but it still doesn't feel bad. Like considering this is like I don't know, I can't be mad at a control scheme for figuring something out for the first time and getting it so right. You know?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I mean, even for years and even still, like a lot of games have relatively, I would say, binary movement where you're as soon as you press the D-pad, you're moving at one speed, and as soon as you
Yeah.
release the D-pad, you stop, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Not every game needs to have a strong sense of momentum. They can focus on other things, but it's just really fun to move Mario around. And that's one of the things, perhaps Mario being my first game experience is even part of this. Just moving characters in a game world is just one of the most fun things about gaming to me. And Mario games are games that you play just because you just want to feel that movement. You want to feel it. And it's right here, all the way back in Super Mario Brothers.
That makes me think, like, why is it that momentum makes it feel so much better? Because wouldn't it make sense, like almost any other game, like when you're done moving, when you let off the D-pad or whatever the control mechanism is, whether it's a joystick or a D-pad or whatnot, the moment you let off it, why doesn't your character stop dead in their place?
Right. I mean, you would, in a lot of ways, you would think that's more predictable.
Yeah.
You could gauge your movement a little better. I just played through the original Tomb Raider last year and I loved it. And that game is very much, it is obtuse if you don't know how the controls work, but the game actually has a pretty darn good tutorial. And it explains very well how the controls work. And if you kind of take those lessons to heart, then it's actually a very predictable game. The only challenge is like, how far is that actually? But you know how far each jump can take you. It's just judging the jump, right? But Super Mario Brothers, like, yeah, it's just more fun, I guess. Like, it's not, to me, it's not difficult.
I almost wonder if it's like a psychological thing where it's like, us as humans, we don't stop on a dime. If you're sprinting, you need to slow down. Even if you're stopping really quickly, you're not stopping dead in the tracks. Like I almost wonder if it creates almost like a weird uncanny valley thing where it's like, that's not how we move. I don't know if that's actually the case. I'm speculating.
Physics and whatnot.
I mean, you could be onto something, because just like in video editing and animation, you could have, just a simple example would be, let's say you want to have a logo come up from the bottom of the screen and stop in the middle. You could just have that move up at one speed and then just hard stop in the middle, but it feels a little unnatural.
Yeah.
And you can, do what we call easing on keyframes. So you say, okay, I want the logo to be in the center of the screen on this frame, but you said it is an eased keyframe, which kind of adds a deceleration to its stop. And it feels better. It just looks nicer, feels better. And maybe there's something to that, to Mario's movement as well. Like there's a fluidity. You can feel him ramping up and ramping down. Although I will say, I actually didn't, at the time it felt like a long time because we were kids, right? So it surely wasn't that long, but I have a memory of, I guess when I was like 5, I was in this program called Kinder Music, which didn't do me any good because I have zero, like maybe even like -20 musical ability. But I do remember going upstairs at the house of the lady that hosted that, and her son was probably, I mean, he was like, to me, he was a big kid, but he was probably only like maybe 2 or 3 years older. I don't know. But he was the one that taught me that you could hold the B button and Mario runs. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. And if there's gaps are only 1 block wide, you could run right over them without jumping. It's like, what? Like, I was definitely playing and loving this game for a while. Obviously not beating it if I didn't know how to run, but I did not know that you could hold the B button and run.
Yeah. My kids did that too. I'm like, hold the button down. What are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was just for shooting fireballs or spitting fireballs. Did you ever know anyone who said that Mario spits fireballs?
I don't think so.
We used to say it came out of his nose, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people said he spits fireballs. I'm like, no.
You clearly see his hand moving. I'm sorry. Like
his hand is like bloop, bloop, bloop.
There's clearly like a hand moving animation with it.
Yeah, through the nose.
Through the nose.
Yeah.
I have a long play of it in the background. I'm gonna have to watch when he throws some fireballs. It does come. Okay, but
It's head height, but he's like,
it is coming out of his mouth, but it's very clear his arm's
like
moving through there.
Yeah, he's winding up his arm and throwing it. I mean, of course, Super Mario Brothers Super Show. I mean, that was just an American produced thing that probably had very little
piece of art.
Yeah, well, it is a piece of art.
I love that show, and
I do too. I do too.
I'm gonna have to get you. I'm gonna have to get you on the episode I do with Dexter every other month on it. We go through the show episode by episode.
Oh, nice. But yeah, I mean, you clearly see him like fired out of his finger, and I think maybe even some of the instruction manual images as well. So like,
Oh, you know what? That's a good transition too. Let's read what the instruction manual says, because it actually has some interesting tidbits of information. It is weird.
It's weird.
This is stuff I feel like probably both of you guys already know, but maybe some of the listeners are unaware of. So in the manual, it has like your story. It says the object of the game/game description. One day, the kingdom of the peaceful mushroom people was invaded by the Koopa, a tribe of turtles famous for their black magic. The quiet, peace-loving mushroom people were turned into mere stones, bricks, and even field horsehair plants, and the mushroom kingdom fell into ruin. The only one who can undo the magic spell on the mushroom people and return them to their normal selves is Princess Toadstool, the daughter of the Mushroom King. Unfortunately, she is presently in the hands of the great Koopa Turtle King. Mario, the hero of the story, in parentheses, maybe, hears about the Mushroom People's plight and sets out on a quest to free the Mushroom Princess from the evil Koopa and restore the fallen kingdom of the Mushroom People. You are Mario. It's up to you to save the Mushroom People from the black magic of the Koopa. And that's how it ends. The thing that a lot of people always talk about is like every time you are technically breaking a brick in this game, you are murdering a mushroom person. It's the citizen. All the blocks are the citizens of the Mushroom Kingdom. So theoretically, every time you hit a coin block or break a block, that's one less person who's not going to get changed back.
y'all just wait for when what happened to Steamboat Willie happens to Mario 1. It goes public domain. People are going to have a field day. I don't think Nintendo's ever going to let that happen. But then again, Disney, I guess, ran out of options on that.
They can only they can only keep it private for so long. It's but
we're going to definitely have our horror version of Super Mario Brothers when that time rolls around. Maybe not in our lifetime.
The thing that actually surprised me was that the Koopas were known for black magic.
Yeah,
you don't really see that, even traces of that, until you get Magic Koopa in Mario World.
Right. And, that was actually, I do wonder if, because obviously Miyamoto had a lot to do with the CG Super Mario Brothers movie. But, it was ultimately written, directed, and produced by Americans. So I do wonder if that played any role in kind of like Kamek. Kamek has the first line in that movie, which made me very happy as like a massive, massive fan of Kamek. Kamek was the I dressed up as Kamek the last Halloween I dressed up for as a kid. So.
Oh, wow. Do you still have any pictures of that?
Oh gosh,
you shouldn't. Not that I'm forcing you to share them, but
No, I would love to share, but I don't. Not to my knowledge. My mom took a lot of pictures, so they may exist somewhere, but I've not come across them. So, but yeah, so you're absolutely right though, and I wonder if kind of that nostalgia for some of that weirdness and kind of the setup for original Mario maybe played, because Kamek is a character I love, but I don't think is really someone that most people associate with Mario, and yet here he is, like, you know, basically leading, the first one that comes out and introduces, Bowser in the movie, like that's, this black mage.
I wonder if that is like that. It could be. It very well could be. I don't know. That's interesting.
But yeah, I'm with you. Like it's always like, what? Koopa's black magic?
What black magic? I see nothing.
Bowser's just a big dumb turtle.
Just throwing a shitload of axes at you.
Yeah.
So many axes. Let's get into the gameplay though, y'all. Like we've already kind of danced around it a little bit. Let's dive into the specifics of, what we like and don't like. I mean, just to break it down, I don't know what else there more is to say about it. This game has been talked about ad nauseum, but for those who have not played it for some strange reason, no judgment, just to be clear. But if you haven't played it, go play it. It's a good game. But it's a 2D platformer. You play as Mario. You jump over gaps, jump up on platforms, jump on top of enemies, unless it's an enemy that can hurt you, like the Hammer Bros. By jumping into specific question mark blocks, you can get coins, or some of them have hidden items in them, like the power-up mushroom or the fire flower. The only two power-ups in this entire game. When you get hit when you get those power-ups, the super mushroom turns Mario really big. The fire flower gives him the fireballs that we were talking about that people thought were coming out of his mouth. If you are to get hit, you shrink back down to normal, and that's the gameplay in a nutshell. You just progress through 8 worlds of 3 levels each. It's usually an above ground level, an underground level, and then there is like just whatever for the third. Hey listeners, future Josh here. Just want to make a quick correction. The level structure for Super Mario Brothers is 3 levels and then a castle level. I fucked all of this up when we were talking about it earlier, so I wanted to jump in here and quick correct it. That's it. Back to the episode. That's kind of like just a real bare bones overview, but what makes Mario so interesting to me is how the game is kind of structured and paced. But real quick on a note on the mushrooms. The mushrooms came about. Let me see if I have this here. The mushrooms came about because mushrooms are associated. This was in the Iwata Asks interview. Mushrooms came about because the mushrooms are associated with magical realms, so they chose that to make Mario big. This was a direct quote from Miyamoto in the Iwata Asks article. Since the game's set in a magical kingdom, I made the required power-up item a mushroom because you see people in folktales wandering into forests and eating mushrooms all the time. That, in turn, led to us calling the in-game world the Mushroom Kingdom, and the rest of the basic plot setup sprung from there. Mario changes his size to vary the gameplay. He was actually originally going to always be big. Sorry, the Miyamoto's quote ended with the sprung from there thing. This is now just some more of my notes. He was originally always going to be big, but the test players kept saying they couldn't see enough for the screen. So they actually shrunk Mario so that way the rest of the screen could like kind of expand out a little bit. And they turned that size they wanted him to be into the super mushroom that we know now. The other crazy thing, and this is what is going to get you into get into like what I was talking about, about the level design in the Mario games. I think it's just, I don't think it can be overstated how important the first screen and a half or so of Super Mario Brothers is. There's you ever hear that speculation, like that question asked, posited on the internet, what's the deadliest enemy? Which enemy in video games has killed the most amount of people? And a lot of people will say it's that first Goomba in Super Mario Brothers.
It might be true.
Just because if you don't know how the game works, you walk right into it and you die. It insta kill. If you really look at the setup for Miyamoto talks about this in the Iwata Asks interview, and so I'm sure people have heard this before, but I still think it's really interesting. He talks about how like that level was designed explicitly to teach you the mechanics of the game without having to give you like a tutorial. So
right.
The very first thing, if you don't do anything at all, you don't jump, you're going to die. You have to, you cannot progress unless you jump, because you will get killed immediately by the Goomba. The Goomba. Even if you run as fast as you can, you're just A, going faster than the Goomba, even if you're getting farther in the level, and B, it still kills you. You have to hit a button to learn how to jump. So once you do that, you can either jump over it, or you can bop it on top of its head, which takes it out, which gives you that very satisfying the whoop, and you see that you can defeat enemies by jumping on their head, or at the very least dodge them. And then the next section, there's a single coin block, and then a couple spaces, and then there's 5 blocks: a brick, a coin block, a brick, a coin block, and a brick. And then in the direct middle above it is another coin block. So the coin blocks are shiny, right? Like they have a little sheen to them. They change colors back and forth to kind of draw your eye to it. So if you realize that you're jumping and you jump into that first one just out of curiosity, you hear the bidding, the iconic coin sound. So then you go to the next one, like, okay, I'm going to get a coin from the next one. And all of a sudden, a mushroom pops out. Well, the last mushroom just killed you, but this one looks different. And that was also, you can read it in the Iwata-esque interview, the design for the super mushroom was super intentional. They needed to make sure that there was no way that you could miss getting it. So that way you got a power up and you knew exactly what it was. That's why as Little Mario, you can't break blocks. And if you notice, if you hit that, by the time you hit that, generally, you can't backpedal the screen. You can't go back forward, and you can't, like, you could jump over and dodge it theoretically. But if you're a new player, you're likely going to not be able to get the timing down with that. So it forces you to, I shouldn't say it forces you, it increases the chances of you not being able to dodge that super mushroom. So you get it, and all of a sudden Mario's big. And you go, oh shit, like there's other things in this besides what, like, just coins. Like I don't get just coins. And then you jump into the bricks and you see you can destroy them. So like that first screen and a half teaches you jumping. It teaches you their secrets, even if it's a very minor one. Like some things, not everything's always going to be the same. It teaches you, like, you're not always going to get coins all the time. And then in the very next screen, like after the first gap, there's a brick that if you try to break, won't break. It just gives you coins. And you can keep hitting it and get more coins. So like the whole first couple screens is constantly like teaching you these mechanics, and then also teaching you how teaching you the iterations on these mechanics, if that makes sense.
I bet if you looked at the first few screens of, say, Kirby's Dream Land on Game Boy, you could probably look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's like pretty cleverly designed. But funnily enough, like these mechanics that Mario teaches you were so drilled into me that I remember first playing Kirby's Dream Land. A friend had it, and I'm figuring out how to play it, and I inhale an enemy, and I'm like, oh, I'm big now.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, that, I don't remember how he explains, like, well, it's not like Mario, like, but then you like shoot it out, and it's like, oh, I'm small now. Small is bad. Like Mario teaches you big is good. So yeah, like it definitely, like this game, like, set my expectations for, small bad, big good, jump on top of enemies good. And when I was presented with a game where jumping on top of enemies bad, I'm like, I don't know how. It took me a while to learn to deal with that.
I think, like, also something I've seen this on like Blue Sky periodically about like game developers talking about like how do you communicate things like this to new players, because so they're like the visual language of games is so locked in because there's so many gamers now. Like, how do you teach something to how do you make something approachable to new players while also making sure the experienced players aren't bored? And in a weird sense, I think games like Mario, like Super Mario Brothers, is a good example, because the first level of Mario isn't boring. Like, it's easy if you've played Mario, but it's not boring. The mechanics are engaging. The obstacles they present to you are fun.
It's fun to just do a quick dash through that level.
Yeah.
Like, just the rhythm of it is fun. Yeah,
I think that's also a really understated part of Mario. Like, what makes Mario so interesting as a game series, excuse me, is that it's a lot more about, there's a lot more speed and rhythm than you really give it credit for. Like, Sonic is known as the fast one. You go as fast as you can in Sonic, but Sonic is weird because as much as Sonic is about being fast, there's lots of times in that series where they force you to go slow because you can't see what's coming. Mario has Mario has a really interesting mixture of like methodical platforming, but then once you get good at it, like the speed element is just wild.
Yeah. It's more literally more my speed than Sonic. Like Sonic is like, I don't know. I guess it's almost like the range of speed is I guess more compressed, but you overall move at maybe a more consistent pace through as you run through the game. And I don't know. I think something about that just clicks with me better.
I think the
And even
consistent
the level design too. I think at playing Mario recently, like, as you run and jump, you see the intentionality of where the pits are, where the pipes are, where the blocks are. Where, again, opposed to Sonic, it unless you know those levels super well, it does feel like Sonic's constantly running fast and then hitting a wall, running fast, hitting a wall.
Yes.
But when Mario, it's like, oh, I see why they put that block right there, because when I just run and I jump, I can get through it really fast. So.
That's an excellent point, both of you. I didn't even think about that way. I think you guys nailed it, where it's just Mario has this interesting consistency to its speed. It may not get to the same overall speed as Sonic, but it's also not stop and go. I also think what's really kind of cool about it is like you see it even this original Super Mario, where when you do get into kind of that rhythm and that routine of like speed as Mario, it's really like you'll start sprinting through a level and it almost feels like sometimes you will complete something by accident. Like you'll make it through a level, you're like, oh my gosh, how did I do that? And I think part of it is because the levels are designed so meticulously that there is a rhythm to beating them once you learn the rhythm and the pattern. And it can be easy to get into a rhythm. It doesn't mean you're going to beat the level, but you can get through a large chunk of the level almost by accident once you've understood the rhythm of that section. It's really interesting.
It's good at like kind of tapping into instinct. A lot of game design is kind of signposting that kind of like you subconsciously like sense, like, because you see this tree, this block, this pattern of enemies, like some pattern like this is going to be what's next. And it doesn't mean that you're having to make like blind jumps of faith, but you can predict what's coming and react when you see it.
Yeah. And also, like, what continues to make Super Mario Bros. Engaging is that there is a decent amount of level variety, for considering it's first of its, like, it's their first attempt at this style of game. Just from the get-go, too, man. Like, you have, an overworld, the second level, you have an underworld, and generally that's the most of what you get until you get to the underwater levels, which...
Oh, you do have the treetops.
Yes, the tree...
And the castles.
Oh, sorry. Yes, treetops and castles, and I love the treetop levels because they're all like mushrooms. It's not like actual trees. It's just the tops of mushrooms, and I love the visual look of that a lot.
And also, like, they do vary it up a lot with, there's like kind of these sort of oval shaped trees that aren't in the first world, even though the second world is very much the same, like blue skies and stuff, but you've now got like trees and fences and stuff. And then I think it's World 3 that's like, now it's dark, and you've got levels where it's kind of got a snowy look. So they use palette swapping in very clever ways to give not just palette swapping, but also just varied tiles. There is a lot more variety than you might expect from for a game of its age.
When the variety that is there is very creatively done. I think one of my favorite examples of a palette swap in this are the clouds and the bushes. They're the exact same sprite. It's just that they've changed the colors. If you look at the bushes on the ground level of an overworld level, and then you look at the clouds, they are one and the same. I always found that really interesting. And
Yeah.
it's something that, you don't notice at first
You
because
don't notice it.
no.
You don't notice.
And then, the little like kind of spherical trees that you were talking about, I forgot about those too. I really like those. And then even like you mentioned the fences and whatnot. Level World 2, Level 3 has the one with all like the fishes flying around too. Even that's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. That's another like those
bridges and stuff.
Yeah, those like floating bridges. Like they don't appear like they aren't like recycled from anything else, are they? So yeah, there's like a lot of things going on with
especially considering like they all look so similar to an extent. Like there's a very strong visual cohesiveness to it, which I do think sometimes wears out its welcome. Like once you get to like the 6th or 7th level it's basically like an overworld level with a black background. I'm like, oh my god, this is just so dreary looking by comparison.
I mean, it's funny though, because if you use the warp zones, you'll probably miss a lot of those levels. So I don't see those as often, but every once in a while it's fun to do a full run through the game.
Well, I actually purposely played all the way through the game for the first time. The only times I've ever got into the final area was when I did the warp zones. And I was like, but when I was playing it for this episode, I wanted to make sure that I was playing it all the way through, like experiencing every level that I could. The only time that I think I ended up, no, I didn't skip any level. I skipped some levels by accident in Super Mario Bros. 2, and I'll explain that in the episode. But it wasn't because like I knew where a shortcut was. But anyway, I'll save that discussion for that episode. Something else that I thought was a really interesting tidbit about the gameplay, the underwater levels. I read in the interview, the Iwata Asks interview, something that it blew my goddamn mind. The swimming sections are just balloon fight. I never put that together. It's the exact same mechanics. It's just balloon fight. The excerpt from the Iwata Asks interview, it says, Iwata says, the game takes place on land, sea, and air with underground sections as well. Had you decided right from the start that it should be a large character that negotiated this terrain? Miyamoto then replied, we had broadly decided on this approach, a large character that would run around on the ground. Iwata responds, and swim in the sea. Miyamoto, in terms of the game's structure, the swimming part is balloon fight. And Iwata goes, you're right, that's exactly what it is. And I went, Jesus Christ, I never noticed that.
Yeah, I never thought of that either. Like balloon fight's actually kind of a funny mechanic to do in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's weird that it like kind of makes more sense just porting that over to swimming. Something that I thought of when Ashton was saying, just kind of what a miracle it is that this game exists, that it was made when it was made, when there was just hardly any template for anything like this. Another thing that always kind of impresses me, it's maybe a little bit of it was definitely an annoyance back in the day, but like the more I think about it, I'm like, wow, is like the kind of the undertow and the water levels. Like if you kind of get over kind of a gap, like there's these hidden currents that are like kind of pulling you down and you're like kind of having to swim out of, and just the idea that there's like essentially physics applied to various like background tiles in the level, like that's just like a level of granularity of movement that is so impressive for 85.
Yeah, and done so well that it's one of those like it's done so well you don't notice it.
You don't think about it. Yeah, I mean, it's just like special effects.
Yeah.
Like, the best special effects are the ones that you don't think about being a special effect, and you don't think about how. Yeah, it's just like you feel that. You feel being sucked down, and you're like, oh, I got to escape this, and you don't think like, how was that done? Why was that done? It's just part of the experience.
And I guess I really just like it. I think what is so almost frustrating in a sense is that you talk about this stuff and you talk about this stuff and it's like, well, yeah, of course, it does that. But it's like, there was no, of course, for them. There was no like, like we can base this off of stuff we already know because this was the first of its kind. Really, it's not the first platforming game. Like technically, I'm not saying that even this one's the first, but like Adventure for the Atari 2600, or whatever, or no, Pitfall. Excuse me.
Pitfall,
Yeah, but I mean, this was like the first, certainly of this scale, of this level of intricate momentum-based mechanics with scrolling.
Yes. Scrolling is a huge, oh my God. Like that's what I should have looked up. There's a great like YouTube channel I used to watch that would explain like how scrolling works and stuff like that. I forget the name of it. It's like 8-bit. It wasn't 8-bit theory. It was something like that though.
Is it My Life in Gaming?
No.
No, I mean, I was going to say Displaced Gamers. I
don't think it was that. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, Displaced Gamers has done a lot of really interesting sort of deconstructions about why does this happen in this game, and he's really focused on NES games. Like he did one on the Minus World and like why it happens and what causes this or that to go into the RAM that causes this to happen. He explains it in a way where someone who's not a programmer like me still goes like, oh, that's pretty cool.
There's so many breakdowns of like the technical aspects of this game. It's wild. The one I was thinking of was of how like the reason why in Super Mario Brothers 3 like there's a discolored side to the screen, which I'll save for the Super Mario 3 episode. But it's interesting how some of the technical limitations affected things like this in this game, and in all games, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I guess to kind of continue to reiterate, just like it is really crazy what they were able to do with this and how this game still holds up. To levy some criticisms at it, I would say my biggest beef with it is that Mario still feels a little floaty. Like, but that's by modern comparison. I still think overall he controls pretty well, and it's also consistent. Like the floatiness is consistent. Once you adjust to it again and you're kind of used to kind of the floaty nature of it, it really isn't that hard to deal with it. Because like when I went to Mario 3 after this, and even Mario 2, I was like, oh wow, this feels so much different than what I'm used to with Super Mario Bros.
See, for me it's interesting, and maybe it's just because these games are just so burned into my mind, but like I do hear people talk about the nuances of the mechanics between Mario 1, Mario 3, Mario World, and how those are translated into Mario Maker, and this isn't exactly like this or that, and I've just never really thought of them as being that different from each other, but I do hear people talk about, I've just never, like, I don't know, like, I think they're just like such a core part of my being that they're all just second nature. Like, I think they are more similar than, say, I apologize for bringing up my arch video game nemesis, the Donkey Kong Country games by Retro Studios. The way they control is so radically different from what Rare did that like I just cannot adapt to those games, and I don't think the gulf and difference between Mario 1, 2 or 1, 3 and World is as vast as the gulf and differentiation of mechanics between Rare Donkey Kong Country and Retro Studios Donkey Kong Country. That's just me. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just, like I say, like I'd say the same thing about Mario 64. Like it is just so ingrained in me that like I can't relate to a world where people think those games just don't feel 100% perfect.
I would say, like, if you want, at least to me, now it's been a minute. I played these on the NES Classic and the other Mario Month episodes on the Super Nintendo Classic. So I don't know if the emulation changed anything with it. I will say, like, playing Super Mario World, it is, how can I put this? I feel like I'm in so much control of Mario. With this, I feel like I have slightly less control.
Yeah.
Partially like Mario slides a lot more. There's a little bit more ice physics type of stuff, even on like non-ice levels. But
Yeah.
Ashton, Trey and I have been talking a lot about this. What are your thoughts on the controls? Like, I want to hear from you. Do you you don't have to pick sides. You can agree or disagree with both of us.
Sure.
But like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, the one thing, as you were saying about him being floaty, I played this, it was either last night, day before, that I was kind of appreciating was that you do have control when Mario's in the air.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
you can subtly adjust which way he's going, or not adjust it. You know, and that can, and even times that can make or break, you know, falling into a pit or not. That was something I was appreciating, just that either the subtlety or the choice to be able to do that, where you know, lots of games you jump and it's like your path is determined. You
You're
can
doomed
see,
from the
yes,
start.
exactly, you can
Mhm.
see your imminent failure
Castlevania
coming.
being a good
Yes,
example of that.
yeah,
Though
yeah,
they, like
exactly.
I said in my Castlevania episode, they designed the levels around that. But yes,
Yeah,
you're
Sure.
locked
there's a
into
place.
an arc.
There's a place for that.
Yeah, a little apples and oranges, but still, just that level of control. And yeah, I think I say this about a lot of games where can you get used to it? Can you adapt to it? Like, I've had people really bash games that I loved because of the movement, and I kind of, like you were saying, like, to me, it made sense to me, and I adapted my gameplay for what I think they were trying to have that character move that way, you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, is it that the character's not moving the way you think or the way you want, or are you not meeting the game where it's at? I guess maybe that's giving it a little too much credit, but
Yeah. And you know, maybe just for context, this is obviously a little, you know, outside the scope of this episode, but I'm kind of a Luigi man when it comes to like Mario 2. I like Luigi's floatiness. So like,
yeah, sure.
you know, maybe, you know, obviously Mario 1 is less floaty, Mario Lost
Yeah.
Levels. You know, Luigi is floaty in it too, and I rather like him. Although I actually probably like Mario in Lost Levels more now, but that's a different topic. But yeah, like I just never really think of it that way. But I suspect a lot of what you're saying about like Super Mario World, Josh, is that does seem like it tends to be the fan favorite, and I gotta be honest. I like Mario 1 and 3 more than World, like by a fair margin. And I love Mario World, but I I think some of his visual design is a little weird, but yeah, I like how this game feels so much. It's not that I like how Mario World feels less, but it's just there was never really a time where I was like away from this game. Like, this is just a game that I've probably, you know, even if it's just using warp zones, probably played through at least a couple of times a year. It's one of the games that if I'm testing out like some new video scaler or new video hardware, it's like almost always one of the first games I test because I know exactly what to expect from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've never walked away from this game, so there's never been a moment where it's like, oh man, I haven't played Mario 1 in a while, and it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, it's not like I remember, because you know the last time I played it is never very long ago.
I think
Mario has always been, always
Yep.
will be.
I think that what I'm just trying to say is not that it controls poorly by any stretch. I just think it there is a level of floatiness to it, which I don't want to say rubs me the wrong way. So let me put it this way: when I first started my replay of it, or my first full playthrough, I should say, of it, it was rubbing me the wrong way a little bit. I was like, I remember how floaty this is. I'm not a fan of that. It'll be fine. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't like the control all that much. But then as I kept playing it and I got used to how the game wants you to control it, it didn't bother me anymore. So I think kind of what you were saying, Ashton, of like meeting the game where it's at, like not assuming the game was going to conform to your tastes. Like once that I kind of got used to like the mechanics and the physics that the game, is just set at and is consistent with, then I enjoyed my time a lot more with it. In fact, you'll hear more about my feelings on Super Mario Bros. 2, but I was really anticipating to enjoy Super Mario Bros. 2 more on my playthrough of it, and a spoiler alert for next week, I didn't. I'll explain, obviously, all that. I know I keep teasing it, but I'm trying to keep it specific to this. Otherwise, I know I will go off on a tangent, and I'm trying to refrain from that.
Well, it's certainly a more complex game by far, and it's one that I have replayed less, and I will agree with you. I struggle with it more. Now, don't get me wrong, I love it. I think it's amazing, but I don't revisit it with the same frequency. So it's not as hardwired into my psyche. So, maybe my skills in that game have degraded in a way that they haven't from Mario 1. So I'm just, again, like I'm so used to it. There's never like oh wow, I forgot how this game plays. Like it's always been there. Something I will say, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun on this, but the All-Stars version, are you all aware of the brick breaking issues in that?
I don't think I am, actually.
I think I've heard another podcast mention it, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, so this is what feels floaty to me, and I didn't realize exactly what it was until many years later when I heard it explained, but I was like, oh gosh, that makes so much sense. It's one of the reasons like I always loved the All-Stars versions of 2 and 3, but Mario 1 is like, it's okay. When you're big, you break bricks, but Mario's trajectory kind of continues upward for a bit.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't immediately he's not immediately pushed back down as the brick breaks. You kind of like it does like halt his momentum. It's not like you jump as high as if there was no brick there, but you don't have that firm. You just kind of like softly like pass through it, and it throws off the rhythm and momentum. And there are fan patches that restore the original behavior. But yeah, the All-Stars version, it's good, but the original version's where it's at for sure.
I didn't really play the All-Stars version. I actually remembered the last time I think I covered this back in 2018. That's what I was like tinkering with. But once again, I never actually ended up truly beating these games. I beat Mario 3 for the first time, like even years after I covered the game the first time. So that's, once again, redoing these games for a number of reasons. One of which is that I actually wanted to like freaking beat these games, whether with save states or otherwise. Wasn't a lot of save state use with this game. It was more Super Mario Bros. 2. I'll get into that. So I got to stop bringing that up. So
I'm amused a little bit.
I can
impending Mario 2 storm.
I can share it with you off mic and whatnot. Where it's coming from. But yeah. So something else to talk about with the I guess the gameplay. We should touch on how the game handles boss fights before we go into kind of music and visuals and presentation and stuff. Because the storyline, there's not much storyline, so we're not going to really touch on that. But I mean, the storyline is rescue Princess Toadstool, aka Peach, but she wasn't Peach yet. And that's the story.
In Japan, she was.
Oh yes, sorry. In Japan, she was. I forgot. I do kind of miss Toadstool as a name just because it's so bizarre. Like it's not cute and cuddly like Peach would be, and it just seems so strange because that's what Princess Peach is. But anyway,
yeah. Oh, I had a hard time adapting.
Well, I still refuse to call Dr. Robotnik Dr. Eggman.
Oh,
it's Robotnik. I'm sorry, it's a better name.
Agree. It is.
But anyway, so the bosses in this I always found kind of strange because, this is where the classic line, your princess is in another castle comes from. You basically, every boss is almost exactly the same. Not exactly. But it's a very similar mechanic for
They
each one.
ramp up. They ramp up in
Yes.
like more difficult variations.
Yes. So basically, every castle level ends. And I realize I'm just a big old idiot. When I was describing the levels, I said you would have an overworld level, an underworld level, and then something else. It's always the castle levels, level 3. I don't know what I'm losing my gut.
But apparently when you're playing this game for the first time, you're supposed to think, oh, this big castle could be the one.
Mm-hmm. That also was new, though, if you think about it, because like games were never this big.
Yeah,
they were like, when you get to the castle and you get to the boss, you think, okay, I beat the boss, because that was kind of a thing in games up to that point.
Donkey Kong was 4 levels. Why would Super Mario Brothers not be?
Exactly. And but then you get to the end of it, and it's all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, like there's so much more to this game. Like there's so much to do in it. And you get past that first Bowser fight, and it's like, oh, just kidding, your princess is in another castle, and you go, what? Excuse me. And you have to do it all over again, new levels, and it's really people were not expecting that at the time. And the way each boss fight works is that you essentially you're going through the castle level, and you wind up on some sort of a bridge, and Bowser or Koopa is on the other side, and he has a different mechanic or different pattern every time. And there's also some environmental elements that change each time. There is some of them might have like what is it, like either bricks above it, or maybe there's a moving platform above it, or maybe a combo of the two, or a number of different things. And you can pretty much figure out how to take them out any way you want. I will say, if you have the Fire Flower power up, the boss fights are significantly easier, because generally most of their patterns you can find a safe spot to like dodge in.
Yeah. Or if you're just big in any way, you can safely just run through them and go for the axe and chop down the bridge.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like this is to deal with all of them those two ways. Time that jump, or just gun it if you have a
I mean, and it's you really got to feel, if you're small, you really got to feel the timing for his jump, or the timing for the more difficult versions that throw the hammers, because there is a stream of hammers, and it is really scary, honestly. Even to me to this day, those hammers are intimidating. And yeah, if you're small, some of those more difficult ones are pretty hairy to run through and go for the axe. But my understanding is that these are supposed to be this is supposed to be some of that Koopa black magic, where a Goomba or some other small time grunt enemy is transformed to look like Bowser, but it's really not Bowser, because when you shoot the fireballs, if you are able to defeat Bowser with fireballs, then it becomes like a gray version of one of those enemies, and it falls into the lava. So you only fight the true Bowser at the very end.
Something also worth noting too is that the final castle level, and I don't remember if the earlier castle levels do this, but it's a maze.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, so I'm of two minds of this. One, I like that they do that. I think it's a nice change of pace. It changes things up just enough to keep things interesting. However, if I'm putting myself in the mind of a kid in 1985 or 1987, right? By the time most kids probably got to play this in North America, I should say. I'm a kid in the 80s, in the mid to late 80s, and I don't have video games. I don't understand like that Mario games do this type of trickery. Like, this is something that you would see in other Mario games from pretty much everyone on out. Like, Super Mario Bros. 2, the Doki Doki Panic Super Mario 2 didn't really have a whole lot of that type of stuff, but once again, that was Doki Doki Panic originally. But like Mario 3, there's tons of ones, you have to pick the right door before you can go to the next area, and you have to guess, test, and revise, and it's a maze. The ghost houses in Super Mario World, same type of thing. Like, they give you these like maze game things, and I'll be honest, I'm not always a fan of them, because it always feels like I feel like I solve them because I understand how game logic works, like how video games play, and how
Right.
I've never felt like they've given me the information I need to solve them.
Yeah.
And
It's just trial and error in this
yes,
case.
and I think that is one of the least fun ways to play a game is
Yeah.
trial and error, unless it's like, I don't mind it in some instances, but with stuff like that, when it's a puzzle, when it's meant to be, you should never, the solution to a puzzle should never be trial and error. A puzzle should always have all the keys that you need to solve all the keys to the solution should be at your fingertips. You just have to figure out how to put them together. That's the puzzle. And this doesn't really have that.
Yeah. I mean, that last level, I think, is a pretty decent maze. I mean, part of that could be, it's just so burned into my memory. I never, forget how to take the correct path through it, because, I probably do that level at minimum 2 times a year, probably more. And I think, though, if you compare it to the mazes that are in some of the earlier levels, those are pretty garbage. I will admit that. There's 2 dungeons, or 2 castle levels. I forget exactly which ones they are. I want to say 3, and it's either 3 and 6 or 4 and 7. I forget which ones. But 2 of them before the final level are also mazes of a sort, except it's just kind of this endless looping path, and you have to you'll have like a choice of like 3 levels: top, middle, bottom, and sometimes they can be a little tricky to get to depending on where you're coming at them from.
Yeah.
And you need to take the correct one, or else you're going to be caught in the loop. And so you just kind of have to figure out, okay, which ones did I take that didn't loop me around? And you have to get several ones correct. The last level, I think, is a lot more logical, because they are discrete rooms that you end up in, and it's it's a relatively short loop. I don't think there are pipes that you can go down that don't proceed to the next area. So, there's that I think it's the second room, where there's like some jumping Koopa Troopas coming at you, and the pipe that you go in is a little higher up. You got to hit a block, an invisible block, to get to it. And you may have tried the other pipes and you couldn't go down them, and you're like, well, this pipe, it's got to be this one that's out of reach. How do I get up to it? And so by that point in the game, you've learned almost certainly there are hidden blocks, so you start feeling around where that is. I do think there is a logic to the final castle that is not, it does not annoy or bother me. But again, to be fair, I know the way, but I didn't find it that hard to learn as a kid. But what is hard for me to remember and memorize, especially because, yeah, admittedly, when I beat the game, I usually use warps. Those other castles, whenever I do play the whole game, those do annoy me a bit. And that is one small area where the All-Stars version is better, because it plays when you take the correct route, it plays a little ding. And so if you then, or if you hit the wrong route, so it solidifies it a little more firmly in your mind, because it is a little hard to tell, like, what is the point horizontally where it's yes or no, right? So it does help you memorize the route much more quickly when you're, and that is truly trial and error, but it does help you. It's a little bit of an assist of, where did I go wrong?
Ashton, what are your thoughts on kind of like the maze nature of some of these castles?
Yeah, I usually forget that's even part of it. Maybe from
Yeah,
the
I do too. I block that out of my memory for the two that are that I don't do as often, other than the last one.
because
I
when I played it recently, I was trying to do no warp pipes. So I don't remember doing that in one of the castles, but there was a level where I was running on top. You know how you can get for the underworld, you can get on top of the
Oh
bricks and
yeah,
just run across. And I like got to the end by accident, so maybe I did skip the third castle, to be
yeah.
honest. So
Because that 4-2
yeah,
has a
so
has a warp zone there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I wonder if it's, I hear this talked about a lot about retro games, about the arcadiness, and so is the maze portion, is that meant to take more quarters from you,
Right,
hypothetically, like
right.
extend the gameplay a little bit longer, um make it something that makes you kind of go back and play it again. That
Yeah, I
would
mean,
be
and
my
I think
thought, probably.
yeah, I think there's also kind of, even though it's a console game first and foremost, of course there are arcade variants, but uh, I do think there is an element of, games were meant to kind of stymie you. Did I say that word right?
I
Stymie,
think
Yeah.
stymie.
Stymie's right. Stymie's right.
You had it right then.
Yeah, games were kind of meant to stymie you, right? Like they
Right.
were supposed to be a challenge. They were supposed to entertain you for a while. They didn't have enough memory to make them really lengthy games most of the time. So, this was something that you wanted to go back to and learn, and the mindset at the time was, well, I'm going to give this a go. If I don't make it, I'll turn it off and turn it on again tomorrow, right? Like people
Yeah.
weren't people have such a mentality these days of I'm going to put my time into this game and I'm going to make progress. And this comes from an era where games weren't as much of a commodity to be consumed and then go on to the next one.
Yeah.
It was a game. I think of a lot of like adventure games, that'd be more of a PC thing, but some of those were really hard to figure out. And, you might look at that today and be like, how would I ever figure that out? Well, if you were in the 80s and you didn't have a bunch of other games to play like we have now, like maybe you would eventually figure that out, or you talk to your friends and put your heads together, or you try a bunch of different things. Like
Yeah.
you were probably less frustrated by things that halt your progress or cause you to restart, because that's just what games were.
I never thought about it from that perspective. Try. That's a really good point. Like if you think it, like games primarily were like always trying to mimic, like home console games were always trying to mimic the arcades. In the arcades,
Mhm.
there was no expectation of beating the game. You generally didn't beat a game,
Yeah,
especially back then.
trying to get a high
You
score.
get a high score, and the had to like the taste now, because games now have a start point and an end point. We're so used to like, no, you beat games, but arcade games, there's no beating. You just play for a high score. And I never really thought about it that way. The crazy way that tastes have changed, not just in terms of like what genres are popular, but even like what people look for in a game. Like high scores is not like I can't relate to that at all. Like I want to beat a game. I have
Well,
I have no
like
drive for a high score.
yeah, well, like I said, this was my first game. So this was my first exposure, not arcades, not Atari. So, even back then, I remember people saying, like, oh, you could do this and get a higher score of Mario. And I'm thinking,
Why?
okay, whatever,
Who
sure. If
cares?
that's fun for you, sure, whatever. Yeah, exactly. And I do think this game was kind of the trend setter. I'm not going to say it was the first, but I would say it was the trend setter of setting that as the expectation for video games. Like that, here is a beginning, here is a final boss, here is an end. You did it.
Right.
You got
Yeah.
there.
Save the
You
Yeah.
know
princess.
exactly.
One last thing I want to bring up before we go into overall visuals and presentation is something I forgot. I believe I started talking about, and then I got sidetracked. I was talking about how the Goombas were like the last, like an afterthought, like they were put in last minute. And this game was, I switched topics to talk about how like the Super Mario Bros was like the max you could fit on a cartridge. Like it was the most game you could have prior to the memory mapper chips. The reason I kind of transitioned to that, this is the last, I know this is a complete non sequitur, but I wanted to bring this up before I forgot it again. The Goombas, they were the game was already pretty much full. They didn't really have enough data or space to put in a whole new enemy with animations and all this other stuff. So the Goomba came about because they're like, well, we need to find a more simple enemy, and we don't have a lot of space to do it. So if you notice, the Goomba has a 2-frame animation. That's it. It is, the first frame is I don't know which one it actually starts on, but for the sake of argument, it's its left foot being bigger than its right foot, like visually bigger than its right foot. The second frame, the right foot is bigger than the left foot, and it just alternates.
Is it just flipping?
It's just,
is it one? Is it only one? Is it
actually?
it's
Sorry,
one
yes,
frame
it's
and
one frame
flips?
and it's just flipping. Yes, that's right.
I wasn't positive, but I thought that might be the case.
That's literally it. That's all they do. They just flip it back and forth, and it works. It looks like they're marching along.
It does. Yeah, they're waddling along.
I just thought that was a really cool little tidbit. Like normally, like animation information isn't always going to be the most interesting, but when it's stuff like that where it's like something that's so iconic and it came about so kind of slapdash and last minute, but it worked out so perfectly, there's just it kind of lends credence to the fact that game devs will talk about every game being released is a miracle, and it's stuff like that that just kind of reminds me of it, where it's like who would have thought like the Goomba became one of the most iconic villains or enemies of all time, and it was like not quite an after, but yeah, literally an afterthought. They didn't even have the idea for it until after playtesting. Just really interesting.
Yeah, and there's such just a logical assortment of enemies in the game. You've got can stomp on, but will get back up. Can't stop on, have to shoot with fireball or hit from under brick. Can't use fireballs on. Jumps that comes out of pipes. Jumps out from the bomb. I mean, it's just it really is a pretty full exploration of the basic kind of methods of can and cannot dispose of this enemy this way with jumping and fire. Like they really hit most of the core options with this first game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to move on to kind of like our final section for the episode here. I want to talk about overall visuals and music and the overall presentation, right? And I it's, in a weird sense, I feel like with the game stuff, I always feel like with the game design and the level and like gameplay mechanics, I always feel like I have more stuff to say about that. And it kind of really rings true for this, because this section here, with its visuals and especially the music, what hasn't been said about it, like it's everything about it is timeless. I've started off the last couple times. I'm actually going to throw it over to you first, Ashton. You can pick anything to talk about, visuals or music, whichever you prefer. But like, what are your thoughts on it? Like, what kind of jumps out to you about either visuals or music?
Yeah, it is tough because what's not been said, and again, I was trying to view the game from this like not take it for granted or not all these prior experience, to try and appreciate these things, and I was trying to listen to how many different sounds and instruments they were using for the music, because again, we were talking limitations. The music, there's a lot of limitations there. I'm not an expert, but they able to create these iconic sounds and songs with just a few tracks is still impressive to this day. I think there's parts of the song, we all know the main melody, but the other parts of it too are so, they sound so good, and they're kind
It's
of
a longer loop
yeah
than you think it is. It's actually a pretty long loop. Like
yeah
you don't get to some of the parts of the overworld track, in most levels if you play them relatively quickly.
right yeah. I was trying to learn the song on guitar in the past, and it's, if you're actually playing the whole thing, it kind of repeats a couple times, but then there's like the bridge, and then it kind of repeats a little bit, and then there's the ending. uh yeah. I saw this, I wish I could remember what it was, but it was an interview with the cast of the movie, um of the Mario movie, and they were talking about the music, and it was kind of funny because none of them had like a deep knowledge of video game history or
Mm.
even knew who Koji Kondo was. But I think it was Charlie Day. He was like, can you imagine being that guy who's just like, all right, listen to this. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. And it was just funny hearing their take on like how amazing it was to come up with this, and how like it was probably blowing people's minds at the time, because again, just like everything else with the gameplay and the design, it set a standard, and there was no blueprint or whatever. But visually, it's kind of funny that I always, whenever I'm playing it, have to remember that he's like this weird green color instead of the classic kind of red and blue,
Yeah,
black
well, I mean,
hair.
I get, that it's. I mean, I think of it as brown,
Yeah,
like his shirt is brown, but I can see where you're saying it can trend green a bit. I mean, it's kind of it's a grody kind of color.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, Josh was saying kind of earlier, and how, he was perceiving it when he first saw the game, and then it's how he perceived Mario 3, and you kind of saw this like kind of advancement towards a more cartoon-like presentation, because they have black outlines in Mario 3 and they don't in Mario 1. And I've kind of come to think of the look of Mario 1, I know I'm like the RGB video guy, and I usually do play this game in, RGB or RGB like quality.
Mhm.
But especially if you play it in composite video, I kind of feel like it, with its sort of overall flatter appearance, there's not really any shading to speak of. There's not much that has like a clear black outline like maybe some of the background elements do. But I almost think it kind of takes on like sort of a painted look, like it's maybe a little impressionistic. I don't know
Sure.
if I'm using the correct art history terms here, but you know what I mean? Like there's almost kind of like, especially with that composite grunge, it's almost maybe like a thick oil, thick uh, bit of oil paint on it or something. Like
Yeah.
it feels like a color palette that you might choose for a painting, more so than a cartoon maybe.
I don't know. I don't know if I ever got that. I never felt like it was very painting. Like I just, I don't know. I can kind of see it because
Maybe I'm overthinking it for sure. I'm not very good at painting, for the record.
I think maybe, you know what though, I think you have something there though, because cartoons generally have like an outline around the cartoon character, right? They have a black outline. Mario does not in this game, and I feel like that kind of gives it a more painted look
Yeah,
because
it's like it's low contrast in
yeah,
most scenes, right? Except the ones where you have the black background.
yeah, the contrast is just because Mario is in a very like plain outfit and it's just a very stark background. But when you have like a blue level or a sky, yeah, blue sky in a level, it's extremely different. That's an interesting point. I think for me, instead of addressing visuals and music separately, I'm going to kind of do it all at once by saying there are so few things, works of art, especially in like a video type of medium, whether it's movies, TV shows, otherwise, where, because in these mediums you have your visual presentation and your audio presentation, and obviously games, you also have gameplay, and there are very few things these types of mediums that just are so instantly iconic that everything is firing on all cylinders. Like, there's a lot of movies that I really like, or games that I really like, where it might have like 2 out of the 3. It might have it might have really good gameplay and a really good story, and the graphics, while not necessarily bad, aren't anything that's like going to blow you out of the water in terms of, other than saying, oh, that looked nice. Like, I'm thinking like a lot of modern games, where like, I think a lot of modern games look really pretty, but they don't always have a strong visual identity. Mario has all of that. Minus the story, but once again, comparing, but like, with that said, compare it to
Had more of a story than most games, maybe.
Yes, and compare it to its contemporaries. It has more story than most of its contemporaries. Like, most of its contemporaries did not have a story. Like, I believe Chris Kohler has said like Donkey Kong was the first game. I don't know if that is officially true, but he's talked about like crediting Donkey Kong as like the first video game to ever have an actual like narrative and story, and that wasn't that long prior to this. It was 5 years to this, and even then, like, there's not, because I think Donkey Kong came out in 80. I can't quite remember off the top of my head now, but
I think that's right.
But like, it really hasn't been that many more years since that, and like, it was only a handful of years difference between when that came out and when this came out, and so I can't really fault it too much for having a very simplistic, basic story, because what else had stories like this at the time? I would, most of them were this or worse. So I can't really write it off for that. But in terms of like, the music, the visuals, and the gameplay, like, it's insane how all of it not just only is good, but how they complement each other. Like, they're almost, it's like synergistic almost. Like, each one feeds into the other so perfectly. The music, the da 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 da, like, it's very bubbly, it's very happy, and it fits with the blue sky and the green bushes, and like the block colors, like all the enemies, like, it's extremely colorful, and the music is also extremely colorful. It's very happy, and then you get to the underground levels, the and it's very muted. It's a lot more browns, and there's a lot less color on screen overall. I think that's, like, everything just kind of works for it. Everything just complements each other, and I feel like the best pieces of art generally do that. They complement, like, all aspects of it complement each other. And I think of, like, the timeless classics of whatever medium it may be. Like, right now, little, personal behind the scenes, I've been really getting back into Lord of the Rings, and like, those movies, and obviously the books accompanying it, like, so much had to go right, and everything had to be firing on all cylinders for it to become the force that it was in theaters. Same with Star Wars. And there's a lot of things that, like, those situations, they cannot be replicated. And I don't mean that in some type of egotistical way, like, oh, they made movies different back then. I mean, literally, like, the situation for all of those things to work the way they did, they happened in a very specific way, and replicating.
They tried to just make it happen. They forced it to happen again with The Hobbit.
Yes, and
it wasn't anywhere near as good. But like, they had all the same elements, but like, they forced it. It was more of a commercial decision.
And that's only.
Good
and
thing
I'm only
that doesn't
using,
happen in video games.
Absolutely not. Everything's a work of art. But like, you look at like games like, I'm trying to think of, like, the most recent big thing was Expedition 33, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Like, a lot of things had to come together for that to become the game that it was. I don't know all the behind the scenes of that, but like, there's just lots of pieces of art that like a lot of magical things had to come together almost by happenstance in order for it to become what it was. And yes, don't get me wrong, there are games and movies and books and music that can come together very intentionally, and they can be phenomenal pieces of art, and they can stand the test of time and be iconic. But like, it feels like the ones that are the most memorable are the ones that kind of came together in spite of themselves, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily the case with Super Mario Bros. Here, but it does feel like this game has everything, like everything came together at the time that it needed to. Like it was meant to be this way, and it could not have happened any other way. And it's just a wonderful game for it.
On the right system.
With the right to, with Miyamoto, with Koji Kondo, like Koji Kondo would then go on to do, Legend of Zelda, obviously, and like write the theme music for that. And Miyamoto, same thing. Like it's just, what are the odds? And I think it's another gaming example of it would be like Chrono Trigger, right? We've talked about it. I talked about on my Chrono Trigger episode with Aiden Mower and like the whole Dream Team thing, how it's the best of Dragon Quest meeting the best of Final Fantasy, and like what are the odds that happens?
And I think also the challenges and the limitations that they had the wisdom or maybe luck to know where to put their efforts and where it really counted. With a limited color palette, with a limited sound chip or whatever, with the gameplay, like they focused on the things that all made it like really good, like making Mario move well and control the way they wanted, and then designing the platforming, like because they had so little to work with in a lot of ways, they used those resources and limitations so well that it all became, as you're saying, like greater than the sum of its parts.
And to just consider the speed at which you could even check what you have done in your work. Like totally. I don't fully know the details, and I don't know if this applied to Super Mario Brothers specifically, but I believe in those days Nintendo like shipped off, like outsourced a lot of their programming to like another company, and and then it like comes back, I don't know if it's the next day or the day after or the next week or what, but like it's a significantly slower process than it is today to just be like, type. Okay, let's see how that feels. No, let's change this. Let's try 5 instead of 6. I mean, that process was very cumbersome back then, as far as I understand. So you can see why people weren't doing kind of that fine momentum based stuff and really intricate scrolling level designs at that time, because just programming and designing was a slow, clunky process.
Yeah. And I don't think that, man, I don't know what else to really say about it. I feel like we've said everything we can say. Well, let's be honest. There's probably a million things we could say, but we can't think of right now. But this game is awesome, and I think we should wrap it up with final thoughts. If there's anything else to add to our final thoughts that we've already kind of gone over, I already kind of gave mine with what I said before. I think this is a game that just caught lightning in a bottle, and it's filled with a bunch of talented people that happened to meet up at the right place at the right time on the right system, and it all worked out. And like everything just worked. The music, the visuals, the gameplay. I mean, heck, even the story for its time is a fine enough story. As simple as it is compared to what we're used to now, it's a story. It did what it needed to do, and I think it's something something we really haven't even touched on, and I'm surprised. We've been going for almost 2 hours, and something we haven't even touched on is just the impact this game has had. Like, it's not just the fact that it's a good game. It's not just the fact that it helped make Nintendo popular helped make Nintendo popular here in North America. In North America, this game almost single-handedly saved the console industry. Like video games were still popular on home computers, and of course, there probably would be another game that would have come along at some point. But that's not what happened. It was this game that came along. Yes, another game could have, but it didn't. This one did.
Games would be different, I think. I mean, it would be interesting to peer into the alternate universes that did not have Super Mario Brothers. Nintendo themselves would absolutely not be where they are.
No.
You had other games like Wonder Boy coming along that were doing side scrolling, but that was a significantly simpler game, and it was released around the same time, I think. That was kind of its closest competitor, and it's a good game, but it's no Super Mario Brothers. It would be really interesting to see the extent to which games would catch up to those kinds of mechanics. What would Sonic the Hedgehog have been if they didn't think that they got to one-up Mario? Would side-scrolling have taken root as much as it did? Would running and jumping be like the primary means of expression in video games?
Collecting things in general,
for so long,
coins,
collecting things. I mean,
one-ups.
I guess Pac-Man certainly collects a lot of things.
I never consider that a collecting thing, though, because you just eat. You eat them. You're not collecting them. You're devouring them.
Yeah, we've had debates on like the backloggery streams I do. We have this we've in the past couple of years we've integrated what we call a court system, where games that those the ones of us that are on the stream have both beaten, and we have to debate like what's this versus that. And something that's kind of emerged in those debates is that I think my definition of a platformer is maybe broader than most people's. Like if at least for 2D platforms, I mean, if the screen is scrolling and you're jumping most of the time, like that's a platformer. But I think a lot of people seem to not consider like Mega Man or Contra or Castlevania platformers.
Mega Man is definitely a platformer. I would say Contra is more of a shooter, though.
Yeah, I mean, but to me, they like platformer is like the big umbrella, and then there's like more like subgenres underneath it. But I don't think those games would necessarily be what they are if Mario hadn't shown us just how fun jumping is. Jumping with smooth controls. I think games could potentially have looked very different. There might be a lot less jumping, there might be a lot less side-scrolling action. The kinds of things that were more popular on PC, PCs weren't very good at scrolling. It was actually, companies that did do smooth scrolling, like Factor 5 with the Turrican games. Those were kind of considered technical marvels to get smooth scrolling in PC games. So more of those kind of screen to screen adventure experiences may have become more of the normal template. It's really hard to say, but I'm biased. This is my first video game experience, but I think of Super Mario Brothers as the point at which modern gaming began, which maybe that's.
I don't think that's hyperbolic at all. I think you're 100% on.
Some people might roll their eyes at that, but I really do think modern gaming begins with Super Mario Brothers. Like, it changed everything, I think.
I'm 100% with you on that. And Ashton, any final thoughts from you, whether it's about Legacy or just the game in general?
Yeah, I agree with what you're both saying. Yeah, there has been this sense, just personally, of this gratitude for it. Like we're lucky to have this game in a sense. Maybe that's overly sentimental, but just the influence it's had. The fact that I think, I can't remember if this was before that we recorded or not, but Tri was saying about if it is still fun to play today, or if it aged as well. I still think it is fun to play and it's enjoyable. It's a game I exposed to my children pretty early, and they had a fun time. I think I had a fun time, at least, watching them play. And they're did appeal more to the more modern versions of Mario, but yeah, we wouldn't have had those experiences. Yeah, the first game my one son beat was Super Mario Odyssey, and
Nice.
so I mean they dropped the Super anyway. And so yeah, having that experience wouldn't have happened without this classic game. So yeah, it's yeah. There's probably not been, I can't think of a game that's been talked about more and analyzed more, with my limited knowledge of it. But
Again, I'm biased, but
yeah,
I think Super Mario 64 is the only other thing that comes close.
yeah,
And that did a whole different thing for a completely different style of game.
Yep,
Mario has set the template in a number of different ways.
absolutely.
And I think that is a good place to end it, y'all. I think there's not much more to be said. Even with that, like I know we've said it a bunch of times. What's to be said that hasn't been said before. I think there's actually a lot of value in conversations, even about topics that have been discussed ad nauseum.
sure.
Part of it is just like you always like if you're a fan of a game, you want to hear people talk about it, even if it's the same stuff you've heard 1,000 times before. I can attest to that as someone who listened to Kevin Smith a lot, and he told a lot of the same stories over and over and again, and I still loved hearing them. I know it's a weird comparison, but it sounds like a little bit of a dig at Kevin Smith. I don't mean it as that.
I mean, that's
But
why we have
Oh, well,
podcasts.
people who watch your show want to hear what you think about it.
Yeah,
And that I also think too, like you never know if you are going to be the person that either A comes up kind of not, I'm not going to say has a discovery, but has a take that no one has heard before, or B, your opinions lead to someone else's take that no one had heard before.
Yeah.
I think there is an element of like just discussing things that people have already discussed a bunch of times over doesn't mean there's not going to be some new interpretation or new thought that comes out of it. So I say all that not necessarily to defend doing an episode. It sounds kind of defensive. I don't mean it that way. I just really like talking about games, and I even if it's a game that everyone has talked about, it's still a lot of fun to do. So Ashton, thank you for setting aside time to talk about a game that a bunch of people have talked about before and will continue to talk about for probably ever, for as long as video games stay relevant, which I can't foresee it going away. God forbid it ever goes away. Thank you both for setting aside over 2 hours, just about 2 hours at the time of this. I'll see what happens after editing, but just about 2 hours of your time to talk about Super Mario Brothers. So thank you both for that. Where can the good people find you online? What would you like to promote? Ashton, we'll start off with you.
sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. Appreciate it. It's good, always good talking to you, man. I have a couple of newer things going on. I have a podcast where I talk to other podcasters about their podcast called Podcurious. Josh was on an episode, so thanks for doing that,
I
Josh.
feel so bad. I should have introduced you as Ashton from Podcurious.
No,
My bad.
Well, it had a very long. The show started and then I had a very long hiatus, so it's kind of one of those things. But I had a bunch of interviews that I had recorded and not finished, not edited. But I'm most recently, by the time this comes out, those will all be probably released, and so you can check those out. Just Podcurious on any sort of podcatcher. And the other thing is my sibling and I have kind of dipped our toe into streaming, trying to get that going regularly on Twitch, called Sibling Mode. And so that's just kind of a newer thing we're trying to do. So if you happen to give us a follow or watch us play games and just make jokes and have fun and hang out, that's kind of our vibe there. And of course, editor for Retro Hangover podcast. tons of great shows and great guests like both Josh and Try on a lot of episodes. So I guess that's usually I have nothing to say to promote. Now I have all these things.
Look at you, busy boy.
Yeah.
All right, Try. What about you? Is there anything you'd like to promote, or can you be found online anywhere?
Yeah, well, I'm not really on social media, so
God bless you.
don't look for me there. But I do do the My Life in Gaming YouTube channel along with my friend Corey Carlson, and we release videos when we get them done, and we stream every Sunday night on the YouTube channel at 7 or excuse me 8 p.m. Eastern, and we've also actually started using our Twitch channels, our Twitch TV channel, My Life in Gaming on Twitch TV, a lot more often. I need to get back to it post holiday break. Of course, it'll be well past that by the time anyone hears this. So hopefully, I'll be back in the groove. I've been focusing on playing indie games, working on my indie game backlog. Although I've been playing some other things on it as well, but my main intent with that is to just get around to my indie game backlog. And Corey's been streaming all kinds of sort of casual, low energy things in the morning. Well, not always, but Corey's like suddenly become like a kind of a Pokemon fan in the past year after having like never really
I've
played
seen
it.
that.
It's kind of funny. So yeah, check us out. We sometimes you'll find 2 streams a day there. And also, I'm one of the founding members of the website backloggery.com. It got a really nice overhaul a couple of years ago that had been a long time in the works. So if anyone saw backloggery.com years ago and thought, this is a little outdated, it's not for me, go check it out. It's still got those old fashioned website vibes, but it's a lot more a lot more user friendly now, I would say. And we also stream on the Backloggery Twitch channel every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And in addition to that, I believe, Josh, this is the first time I've been on your show, since I can say I'm also one of the co-hosts of the DF Retro Super Show over on Digital Foundry. So that's a show with me and Corey and Audie Surley join Digital Foundry's John Linneman, talking about all sorts of retro topics with all sorts of, John's bottomless well of random technical retro knowledge sprinkled in. And that's been really fun. Releases every other week. So that's how that's been going. So yeah, check all that out.
I will have links to all of this in the show notes. I will probably have to ask my guests here to send me all those links, because it's a lot of plugs, y'all. There's a lot of stuff for you to check out.
How busy we were.
We're all busy boys. But yes, thank you both once again for joining me. Appreciate having you both on the show again. It's always a lot of fun. As for myself, you can follow me on Blue Sky at stillloadingpodcast.com, on Instagram at stillloadingpod, on Twitch at stillloadingpod, where I stream whenever the hell I'm able to. When this comes out, I don't know what game I will be streaming. The last one I streamed was Perfect Dark, which will be an upcoming episode of the show as well that my patrons voted for. And in speaking of Patreon, there is a Patreon. You can support the show by going over there and considering joining. You can also support the show, of course, giving it a 5-star rating and review on whichever podcasting app you use. But in terms of Patreon, there's a lot of bonus content over there for you. For as little as $1 a month, you get all the episodes a little bit earlier with better audio quality, as well as access to patron voting rights, which help guide the direction of the show. I do quarterly polls over there, as well as a big annual backlog month poll. So if you join for only $1, you can get all of that. For $3 a month, you get all of the previous tier plus patron shoutouts, which you heard at the beginning of this episode. For $4 a month, you get everything. You get the 2 previous tiers plus 2 mini bonus episodes every single month, which there are over 100 of now. So you can check all of that out for only $4 a month. And finally, the $5 tier. For $5 a month, you get everything, all the previous tiers, plus access to my monthly movie podcast, which right now is called Still Muppeting, the only Muppet movie podcast where me and a bunch of friends play the music, light the lights, and we talk about the Muppets on Still Muppeting tonight. And we're going through, me and my buddy Doug from the Nostalgia Marcanon podcast are going through the vast majority, all the Muppet movies and some of the Jim Henson stuff, like Dark Crystal or Labyrinth and stuff. Yes, Labyrinth. So that is all over at the Patreon for the $5 level. At the time this episode is coming out, this is out in March, we will have done, let me think here, the fourth, our fifth episode will be coming out. I don't remember the name of the movie we're going to be covering, but we have already covered the original Muppet movie, Muppet Christmas Carol, because of course we have to do it for Christmas. And we covered an episode of The Muppet Show. And then there's another movie that I can't remember the name of right now because it hasn't been recorded and is not out yet. But lots of Muppet movie and Muppet conversation over there at the $5 level, all at patreon.com/stillloadingpod. But that's it. That is all the time I have for you on this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all for listening. Try, Ashton, thank you once again for joining me.
Of course.
Thank you.
And with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.